Hello and welcome to my new channel, While I Age. Yes, the title was a bit clickbaity, but it's absolutely true. But there are reasons. This was not my first panic attack by far. I've suffered from an anxiety disorder since I was a little child. Of course, we didn't know what anxiety disorders really were in the 50s. And I was afraid of everything, though. I was afraid of the dark. I was afraid of doctors. I was afraid of heights. I was afraid of climbing up the jungle gym. I was afraid of everything. We used to have in New York these subways. They called elevator subways. And every single time I went up with my mother up the stairs, I would throw up. And no one ever thought that that was unusual back at that time. But as I grew older and my panic attacks were keeping me from living a normal life. Now, I got married very young, and I remember going to the grocery store and filling up my cart with groceries and then having to leave, feel like I was passing out, couldn't breathe, and leave my cart there and run out. And that turned into agoraphobia, which is it actually means fear of the marketplace. So my marketplace was my grocery store, and I was afraid. I was literally afraid of shopping. And this went on as I got older to a fear of shopping malls. And by the time there was a period in my 30s where I didn't go out for months. And that is also anxiety disorder. Now, let me just say, anxiety disorders are not just stress. And even depression, there is a normal depression that you get. For example, when my marriage broke up, I was depressed. That's called situational depression. And I don't suffer from depression. So anxiety is like that also. There's a situational anxiety. You have a new job, you have a job interview, or your daughter's getting married, like what happened to me recently. But an anxiety disorder is something that is quite different. And I want to just show you some of the different it's an umbrella term for many other mental disorders under this umbrella. And some of them are, I'll just briefly tell you about them. You probably know already, but it's GAD, which is generalized anxiety disorder, which I have. And then another member of my family has social anxiety disorder. And these all come under the mental anxiety disorder umbrella. Social anxiety disorder, where you don't want to go out. It's not agoraphobia, but you don't want to, you have a hard time meeting people and on a social level. And then there's PTSD, which I also have. And PTSD, a lot of people who were in the Army or the service, they get this because of being in the Army or the Navy or the Marines, or seeing fighting or being in a war will have nightmares and other signs of anxiety. And I also have nightmares. So why do I have PTSD? You can say it came from my childhood. My mother, at that time they called it manic depressive. Now they call it bipolar. But my mother was in and out of every hospital in New York City when I was growing up. And they're finding out now that children who are, the children of people with bipolar disorder are usually, if they're going to have a mental disorder, it's going to be an anxiety disorder. And what happened to me also is that I was attacked in New York. I was almost killed, really, on my 19th birthday. And I won't go into that, except that alone will bring on PTSD, which I still suffer from, but I went through a lot of therapy for that, and that was the reason that I came to Hawaii from New York, and that goes into what I was going to say. But and then the agoraphobia and OCD, which another member of my family has, where you're constantly checking. All of these and others, like eating disorders, go under that umbrella of anxiety disorders. So, back to what I was talking about. Now, anxiety disorders are very, I don't want to say popular, but they affect over 40 million adults in the United States. That's about 19.1% of the adult population. And if you want to go globally, in 2019, 301 million people worldwide had an anxiety disorder, which is 4% of the global population. So that makes anxiety disorders the most common of the mental disorders. So have I talked about that enough? So going back to why I would put myself in a situation where I would have a panic attack. And I'm going to explain that. Now, I'm not talking about other people. I'm talking about me. I'm talking about something that I've learned in my 74 plus years of life. And that is a way of getting out of the PTSD, the stress, the panic, is to do something really outrageous. And let me tell you, I've done a lot of outrageous things in my life. And most of the time it was to get rid of that panicky feeling. I shouldn't say panicky feeling, the panic attacks. Or I used to say that wherever I lived, the ambulance knew my address, because that's what you do. You feel like you're dying, so you have to, you call 911, or somebody calls 911 because you're on the floor or you can't breathe and people think you're having a heart attack, even if you're young. And the terrible experiences I had in the hospital, during the 60s and the 70s, where I would have a lot of health anxiety and think I was dying of a brain tumor, and I was laughed at by doctors. And then you become afraid of even calling 911. But that's another story. But what I learned, and I don't know if it would work for you if you are one of these thousands of people who are suffering right now, that it might help. And that is doing something out of the ordinary. For me, it switches something in my brain. It switches something in my brain when I do something really big. Now, it was very hard for me to do something big when I was a mother of 4, divorced mother of 4, and then I was a divorced mother of 2, living in New York with very little money. But when you are, you have this compulsion to do something, it's amazing what you will do to get rid of that panic. So I'm going to read you some of the things that I've done when I was trying to get rid of a panic attack. And then I'll go back to why I started this channel. So, like I said, I moved to Hawaii with 2 kids and very little money, knowing no one, in 1976. I saved, I worked at a job I hated, and I saved for 1 year to be able to do this, because I had to get away. And I thought, in my feeling of anxiety and panic, I'll go through anything for a short period of time so I can get out of New York. Now, of course, I wanted to get out of New York because I had been a victim of crime. So I thought that was the reason that I was getting out of New York. But actually what I was doing something outrageous. And everyone thought I was like, you're going where? Remember, in 76, people from New York didn't just move to Hawaii. They would, if they moved, they would go to Florida or they would go to California, but they wouldn't go to Hawaii. But I did, and I did it with 2 children. I remember I stayed with a pen pal. We used to have pen pals instead of like connecting on the internet. And I stayed with an old man, and I was 25 years old, and he came on to me. He actually came on to me. So the next day, I left and I found an apartment, but that's another story. So that was outrageous. But not only did I get out of the panic by being in such a different place, but it worked out. I stayed here. Well, I went other places, but in other words, when you do something outrageous, sometimes it does work out. Now, sometimes it doesn't. What else did I do? Well, even before that, I decided at 23 that I was going to be a flamenco dancer in Spain. I know. First of all, that was impossible at that time. To be a flamenco dancer, what they call gypsies at that time, the Romani people of Spain, they held those jobs, and they weren't giving them up to some 23-year-old half Spanish girl who decides that she was going to come and get into their business. But I was going through panic at that time, and again, everyone thought I was like mad, but I was having panic attacks, and I thought if I go there and become a dancer, which never happened, by the way, but what did happen was that I was a dancer. I loved to dance. I was a Spanish dancer, but not flamenco. I aspired to be a flamenco dancer. But I had so many, when I did go to Spain, I did meet somebody and was able to get into a Latin American, sort of like a TV show that wasn't popular, that was on the state-run channel, because at that time, Franco, the dictator, was the dictator of Spain, so it wasn't free like it was now. And I remember I put my foot in a fountain once, and I almost got arrested because they said, take a shower in your hotel. But I had experiences in Spain by doing that outrageous thing to get rid of my panic attack. I had wonderful experiences. I had dinner with a bullfighter. I met someone that I thought I would marry at one point. Of course, that didn't work out either. And I saw another country, and I lived in another country. So the biggest part was I didn't have panic attacks while I was away. Okay, another thing I did. When I was 50, now this wasn't it was outrageous, but I had a contact. I was a teacher already. I was an ESL teacher. I had just gotten my credentials. It's called TEFL, Teaching English as a Foreign Language. And I went to Japan. My daughter was a teacher in Japan, and I joined her. I wasn't thinking of moving there, but when I got there, I was going through some difficult times reaching 50, and I was having, again, the panic attacks were starting, returning, I should say. And when I went there, now that's a different place to go to if you want to get away from everything. I realized that being an older woman at 50 was something that the Japanese people, they wanted. They wanted a teacher that was an older woman to work with children and adults. They just didn't have many women, period, and also many older women. And people would tell me that I was brave, and it clicked. That brain thing clicked. And I thought to myself, I had a wonderful 3 years in Japan teaching. I'm not going to say that I never felt panic during those 3 years, because I would be lying. But doing these outrageous things to to run away. They always say running away from is not good. But running away from me has always been a way that I was trying to get away from myself. Of course, wherever you go, there you are, right? But you're someplace different. And I said for me, it clicked in my brain for at least to calm down my nervous system, because I have a very active, as you can see, nervous system. Anything else? Well, I'll just say that at age 70, I decided to start a booktube channel, which I still have. And I was so nervous. I thought, why does anyone want to see a 70-year-old woman on YouTube? And I ask you, why do you want to see that? But let me just explain to you. I met so many wonderful people who are also, and I don't call myself an introvert, but we're also struggling with different things as I got to know them. And books have, like I said in my first video, have always been a way that I calm myself, that I learn things, that I escape from reality, as well as literally escaping from reality. So when I started my first video here on While I Age, Choosing to Thrive at 75, it was a pretty bad video if you will look at it. I was nervous. I had a panic attack. And I thought, I had a panic attack before I even started. It took me like 1 hour to do 4 minutes of a video. And as you see, I'm not a shy person to speak in front of the camera. But I said, all those bad thoughts come to you, like, you're not good enough. That's what my mother told me when I wanted to be a singer or a dancer. You're not pretty enough. Things aren't going to work out for you. You're not like the beautiful people. The beautiful people were people that, they were the haves and the have-nots, and we were the have-nots. We were poor. Poor people don't get anything. That's what my mother was telling herself. And it glommed on to me that I felt that way. But I had something, maybe it was just a sense of survival instinct, and that's why I got married very young, to get away from my mother. And I've been getting away ever since. So I started this channel, While I Age, because I wanted to talk to you about things like this. I wanted to have, in my booktube channel, I was talking about mental health. There was Mental Health May, and I was doing an event where I would talk about all kinds of mental illnesses and reading books about it. But I wanted to talk about my experiences more, and maybe help somebody who's going through panic right now, and tell you that, first of all, you will be okay. You will be fine. And I wish someone had told me that when I was suffering. You will be fine. This will not destroy you. Even if you're not a brave person, and I think I'm going to cry right now, but I know if all of these people out there are suffering at a younger age, at an older age, there's nothing to be ashamed of. Yeah, I have health anxiety, and I'm 74. People say, why would you have health anxiety? You're old already. I've had people actually say that to me. Anxiety doesn't age out. Mental illness doesn't age out, but there are ways to deal with them. There are tools that you can use, that you can live a successful life, that you can do things. And for me, it was doing something outrageous. So now I'm doing something outrageous, and I'm starting this channel at almost 75 years old. And I'm hoping that you will join me, and please subscribe and like, and please say hi in the comments, and I will answer everyone, because this is why I'm starting this channel, to share. I'm sharing my life. And I forgot to tell you, there's another outrageous thing I did. I actually, to heal myself, I wrote a memoir. It's out of print now. I took it out of print because I thought that I didn't want to hurt people in my family at that time. But it was out there for a while. And maybe I'll do it again. But writing, that's another thing. The reason I'm bringing that up is writing things down help me. Writing, reading, these are things that help me. They might help you. Medication is another thing that helps me. I don't take very much because I have other medical conditions, but a little bit of medication just to get from that low feeling to a to level. Nothing to make me like high or very low, but just on an even keel. So I do take a little medication, and some people might take natural things for their anxiety. So I intend to talk about things that affect older people, but also affect younger people. And maybe younger people might want to hear this, help their parents who are suffering from depression, anxiety, or other mental illnesses. Anyway, I've talked enough for this second video. So even though I had a panic attack, I said, I'm starting this video. And hopefully I can keep it up. So until my next video, because I live in Hawaii for 45 years, I'll bid you aloha.